Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Esselatu vesselamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve ashabihi ve etba'ihi ve sellem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We have been studying Sunnah, prophetic practices for quite some time, and inshallah today we will conclude this topic. And who wants to read for today's text? It's going to be 11th point, the last part. We will read it all at once and then discuss. It's somewhat going to be like a summary. We will wrap it up, and if time remains, we can start a new topic today, inshallah. Ahmed is reading.
The 11th point. This consists of three matters. Sources of his practices are threefold: his words, his acts, and his conduct. And each of these has three categories: obligatory, voluntary, and laudable. It is imperative to follow those that are obligatory and compulsory. And penalties and punishment are incurred for giving them. Everyone is charged with following. As for the voluntary sort, as a mean of winning God's love, the believers are again charged with following. But they receive no penalty if they refuse. However, to act in accordance with them and to follow them is highly meritorious, while to change them is innovation, misguidance, and a great error. Emulate the Prophet peace be upon him's customary actions is extremely laudable and in accordance with wisdom, and is beneficial for both personal life and social life and for man. For all his habitual actions produce numerous things beneficial for life, and furthermore, by following them, such conduct and actions become virtue. Yes, since as both friend and foe agree, the person of Muhammad, peace be upon him, manifested the highest degree of moral virtue. And since as all are agreed, he is the most famous and excellent member of the human race. And since, as is indicated by his thousands of miracles, and testified to by the word of Islam that he founded and its achievements, it is affirmed by the proof of the Quran, which he heralded and implemented. He was the most excellent, perfect man, and most excellent God. And since, as the fruit of following him, millions of the people of perfection have advanced through the degrees of attainment and reached the happiness of both worlds. For sure, his practices and actions are finest examples to be followed, and the safest guides and the soundest laws to be adopted as principles. Happy the person who has a large share of following the Prophet peace be upon his practices, while those who are lazy and do not follow them suffer vast loss, and those who consider them to be unimportant commit a great crime. While if they criticize them, which infers denying them, it is serious misguidance. Second matter. Almighty God decrees in the all-wise Quran, and you stand on an exalted standard of character. According to sound narrations, when the distinguished companion Aisha, she would say his character is the Quran. That is to say, Muhammad peace be upon him is the exemplar of the fine moral qualities described by the Quran. He conforms to them more than anyone, and his nature was created in accordance with it. So even lunatics would understand how unfortunate are those heedless members of his community who believe in him yet give no importance to his practices or want to change them, despite each of his deeds, states, words, and actions being worthy of emulation by mankind. Third matter. Since the noble messenger, peace be upon him, was created with the most moderate character in the most perfect form, his actions and rest all proceeded on moderation and equanimity. His biography shows clearly that he always acted with moderation and equanimity, and avoided excess and negligence. Yes, God's noble messenger, peace be upon him, conformed completely to the command. Therefore, stand firm in the straight way as you are commanded. And moderation is apparent in all his acts, words, and conduct. For example, since his reasoning faculty was free of williness and stupidity, which are excess and deficiency, resembling its corruption and darkness, it always functioned with wisdom, the middle way and means of moderation. Similarly, far from rage and cowardice, which are the corruption of the power of anger, and its excess and deficiency. His power of anger was always employed with sacred terms, which is the middle way and means of moderation of that power. And so he purified of licentiousness and frigidity, which are the excess and deficiency of the power of animal appetite and its corruption. His power of passion always took chastity, the means of moderation of the power, as guide at the degree of maximum virtuousness, and so on. In all his practices, daily conduct, and in carrying out the injunctions of his Sharia, he chose the way of moderation, and avoided excess and deficiency and wastefulness and prodigality, which are wrongdoing and darkness. He avoided wastefulness absolutely and took frugality as his guide in his speech, even and in eating and drinking. Thousands of books have been written describing the details of this book. In accordance with, a hint is enough for those. You may do with this drop from the ocean or the Suez shore. O God, grant blessings to those, blessings to he who brought together in his person all fine moral qualities and manifested the mystery law, and you stand on an exalted standard of character and Hosea. Whoever adheres to my practices when my community is corrupted shall receive the reward of 100 martyrs. And they shall say, praise be to God, who has guided us to this felicity. Never could we have found guidance had it not been for the guidance of God. Indeed, it was the purpose of our sustainer brought you. Glory be unto you. You have no knowledge save that which you have taught. Indeed, you are all knowing, all wise.
So, and this concludes the text with those three major remarks. Could you remind us these three major remarks from the text? So, first, he talked about his three major sources of his Sunnah. He said it could be his words, could be his acts, could be his conduct. And then he talked about this Sunnah being, this source of Sunnah being these three, but it could be that either it's obligatory or it's nawafil, voluntary, or it is adab, like his manners. The obligatory parts, everybody has to practice this. The nawafil part, the voluntary part, it is strongly recommended. So if you don't do it, you don't get harm, but you are losing a lot of benefits. And when it comes to his acts, like adab, then performing them is going to make your daily life, normal daily actions into worship. And but the extra thing that he said here was criticizing it. What is the point of criticizing it? The last paragraph.
The third point that we talk about the two major things. Source of Sunnah, type of Sunnah, and third one is
no. So source of Sunnah, let's start from there. Otherwise it's getting you'll get lost. So he says source of Sunnah is Prophet's words, Prophet's acts, and Prophet's conducts. States, hal, the way he was. So does this sound okay to you? Anything new that's being said here? Sunnah is not only the words of the Prophet, just to emphasize this one. Like Sunnah could have been Prophet's words, could have been Prophet's acts, or just the state that the Prophet was in. So then either today or next week, we will start talking about how do we know of those sunnahs? Because for words, you will say that somebody heard the word and reported it to us. But now we are talking about actions of the Prophet and even the states of the Prophet. which puts a lot of emphasis on the observer as well, which we will discuss starting next. So what did Sahabe do? Because for words, you can say that they just recorded it on the paper. Nice. But how about his acts and his conduct? We will talk about this. This was the first part. The second part, he said, whatever we call Sunnah goes under three clusters. One of them is obligatory, the other one is voluntary, and the third one is adab. For the obligatory part, we have to do it. We should do it. Voluntary part, we are strongly recommended to do it. And if we don't do it, we will lose a lot of merits because it's a good character. And then when it comes to the third, it is his like the manners. I mean, you can do it this way, that way. That's like neither obligatory nor voluntary. This is the adab part. But doing it will make our day-to-day actions into worship. And we talked about this before, or is this part clear? How everyday actions will become a worship? Sounds good. Adi, was it a question, hand? No. Okay. So,
Doesn't make sense.
okay. So, the part that he mentioned at the end was, happy the person who has a large share of following the Prophet's practices, or how good it is for the person who has a share of all these three. While those who are lazy and do not follow them suffer vast loss. Out of laziness, I'm not able to do it, let's say. So it's a loss. And those who consider them to be unimportant commit a great crime. It's not a big deal. It's not important, you know. While if they criticize them, which infers denying them, it is serious misguidance. So he talked about three different categories for negligence. It could be out of laziness. It could be out of considering it unimportant, or it could be because I think it doesn't make sense. So anything you would like to say about these three categories? Is there something to, like we are in the first category, or well, we are already practicing not in any of the three categories? Shall we be worried about this? What do you think?
So, since you are moderating, I have to take your role and take one step back.
Okay.
So,
She had almost a question was coming out, so
do you want to go first? Seriously. At the very beginning, when he talks about this voluntary, I always found it interesting, like having this voluntary part and what it means. We talked about it from different aspects. Today, when I asked the same question when I was reading another thing of the Bible. So we take, after all these discussions, we take Prophet as the role model, not in these worldly affairs necessarily. That comes, let's say, part of the package, but as the best human being in terms of the relationship between this human being and his creator. So he's the one that we, again, after all these discussions, these are just conclusions, we're trying to imitate so that we can gain the love of the one who creates us. And then we're saying that there are certain things that you don't have to do. So how should I take them? I guess one thing, that we can all agree, we are all created in different contexts. at the different cultures, different societies, different family structures. In certain families, in certain cultures, let's say, women cannot work. In others, it is encouraged that they work. Such differences. So when we look at the life of the prophet, we see that he had, and his family structure had a certain character. And I look at my family structure, it doesn't look like him, like his. What am I going to do in such a context? And this is out of my choice, partially at least, right? My father, my mother. The same applies to the culture that we live, or the government that we are being governed. So I am being created in a certain context in which I don't have. I'm trying to steal something from my daughter. Okay. This certain context that I don't have control, that it's given to me. So then it makes sense that the Sunnah would have obligatory parts, meaning one way or another, I have to follow, I have to find a way to change myself, change my environment, whatever this obligatory is. Otherwise, I will lose my connection with my Creator. So if, for instance, my society enforces me to believe that I am sufficient, right? We discussed this during the retreat. I have to act as a self-sufficient leader. That's my culture is imposing. Then I have to find a way, because there's part of the obligatory, that I cannot act as a self-sufficient creature. I have to accept the worshipper reality, right? The slaves. This is the obligatory part. I have to find a way to do that. But when it comes to other stuff, again in the society, whether, again, this is the easy example, that's the easy. Whether woman works or not, it seems something not obligatory, right? So I'm fine with doing this. So, but also the text says, even though there's no punishment not doing it, you're also missing some rewards not doing it. So it's as if again, an ideal, a target for me, like the role model, that I have to resemble. I try to resemble something. To what extent? Again, to the extent that if I lose my relationship with my Creator, I cannot, what is the word? Okay. Cast aside, yes, okay. Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I meant. Yeah, I have to accept, I have to do that. But others, there are ways, let's say, to leave your religion, to leave your iman in different contexts as well. So this is very, I would say, to the ground, to the reality of the human being. Because as I said at the very beginning, every human is created in different contexts. So there must be some quote-unquote voluntary that sometimes I can do with ease, sometimes I cannot do with. But even such situations, I'm fine, and I still can find a way to connect with my people. So what I'm trying to say, I think we should take this voluntary and obligatory as whether I am losing my connection with my Creator or not. Otherwise, we shouldn't take it as, the things that you have to do, things that you are okay not to do. So this goes back also to parts like, there are certain things that we keep questioning why the Prophet did not forbid certain things, although they are against the social norms in our modern life. A certain type of governing. It was not, obvious about like, oh yeah, you can have republic, or you can have democracy, you can have this or whatever. He didn't make such distinctions. With his life, he made it, right? But we know that you can become a Muslim. You can be a Muslim even if you are living in a kingship. It's not an obstacle. You can be a Muslim in a democracy. You can be a Muslim in a kingdom. You can be a Muslim in any other governing types as well. As an individual, right? When the rest of the country is not believing. It's not obligatory, for instance, to vote, right? Because it's the part of the context that you are living in, and it may change. But if it is about losing your connection with the Creator, it is not obligatory. It is not voluntary. It is obligatory. Anyway, so.
Something maybe that I took from what you're trying to say and from these sentences as well, that the component to really be honest with yourself about practice and how much is you do it all the way up, because sometimes I feel like in my personal experience it's easy to make like excuses, and I feel like that could be like, I don't know, trying to, I don't know if it was like maybe unintentionally trying to criticize, oh, we're in a different time period now, so maybe this isn't as relevant to me. Or I was also thinking about like the concept today in terms of like eating habits and exercise, like the concept of a cheat day. Like you do everything properly for a long time, however period of time, and then you have this one day where you can do whatever you want. So actually, this kind of reminded me of that concept in terms of like maybe we could talk about this in terms of like what it means to be moderate in something. Because sometimes I feel like today it feels like trying to follow a moderate way becomes something extreme almost. And so I guess I was just kind of thinking about that and sort of the attitude that developed behind like certain habits in our society today that I was thinking of and that I personally kind of struggle with a bit as well. So I guess it's maybe like trying to be honest and saying, if I'm not doing this, I am like missing out, because the Prophet was the best character example. And I shouldn't be trying to find like loopholes or criticize. To be honest, like I can't do this because of this situation. I could maybe try to find a way, inshallah, or just try to like navigate as best as sort of like.
So I guess the first two parts seems to be somewhat relatable. If not, we can also talk about it. Like if you are lazy, then you're losing. If you are seeing it unimportant, it's a crime. But and of course, this could also be considered within the norms of today. Like if I see it unimportant, it's a crime. But at least I can relate to it. But the third one, so seeing it open to criticism. Let me put it this way. The author is as if saying that it's not open to criticism at all. If you feel like it's open to criticism, that means you're denying it. This is, if I'm reading into the text. Then, and he says it's a serious misguidance. Do we agree with that? Like prophets' acts are not open to criticism, is what he is saying here, for instance.
Can we read the part of the text?
Yeah. So, while those who are lazy and do not follow them suffer vast loss, and those who consider them to be unimportant commit a great crime, while if they criticize them, which infers denying them, it is serious misguidance.
So when you criticize them, it's a serious misguidance.
Yeah. So the criticism implies a misguidance. Yes, Kadir. Kadir, if you criticize, we have to stone you to death. But yeah, continue.
Is there a difference between criticizing and questioning? I think the whole premise of Islam, or I think religion, stands upon the questioning stuff, what is around you, why you're doing anything that you're doing. So in that sense, wouldn't you want to see how this thing is making sense in my life, and what if it's not making sense in someone else's life? So would that come into critiquing or something like that? And also some of the, for example, maybe narrations or chain of narration is not as perfect as you would say. Can we critique that? Like, where is that people go to?
So I guess the bigger question here is criticism versus questioning. Is there a difference between the two?
And also criticism of Sunnah versus criticism of narrations.
Yeah, this is the second question. Criticism of the chain versus the content. Any comments about this? Should be an easy. Ahmed can answer. And if his answer is like negative, he can just slap you this way. It's very close. What do you think, Ahmed? Is there a difference between criticism and questioning?
I would say yes. Like, if you're, I think critiquing would be taking a specific from an action that the prophet did, you can respond to it and say, oh, I don't know. It doesn't fit. But I think questioning, on the other hand, is like what we have been doing in a way that, oh, when the prophet, peace be upon him, he used to eat dates, was it like, what was the hikmah behind it? I think that's questioning. Critiquing would be, oh, I don't like dates. I don't know why he ate dates. Like, if you go in that direction. And I think there is a difference. As far as narrations go, that's how we approach the compilation, what we call Sahih narrations. Like, majority of the questioning has been already done for us, alhamdulillah. And we have Sahih words that provide us with how solid that narration is.
I think that's an important point. The distinction between two is important because
Between what two sort of
criticism versus questioning. Because criticism is taking an attitude of isolating the problem, whatever I have, just taking it at individually, and I have an attitude to even find a mistake. Like, this is the initial position that I'm taking. I'm going to call it a win if I criticize it and discredit it. I will not consider it a win if I see the wisdom behind it. Like, this is sort of the feeling behind criticism generally. But on the other hand, questioning is, I'm genuinely trying to understand. But this genuine understanding is also, as we have been building up so far, like, who is it that I'm trying to understand? So let's not isolate the event that I'm trying to understand from the context. And the context in this case being, as we have been discussing for, like, even before this Sunnah conversation, we were studying about prophethood, how humanity, you being a human in this existence, requires that there must exist a prophet. Go all the way to there, then talk about Quran, as like when we are talking about Prophet ﷺ, we cannot take message of Quran out of the picture either. With all these taken into account, I need to then question and try to understand wisdom behind an event. It cannot be taken in isolation. I guess a simple example for this, as we talked before, is Prophet's multiple marriages. If I take it in isolation, and especially think about it in today's mindsets. So if I feel like, yeah, just analyzing it as a politically powerful man satiating his desires, this is the first thing that comes to mind. But what did I do? I isolated the question, the problem, from its environment, from the background, from its actual context. Then I can criticize it as much as I want if I take it as such. But if I do it as take the prophethood into context, prophet's message into context, and prophet's life into context, then it's going to be a totally different story. Jazakallah khairan, Atik, for hijacking, for serving coffee. Alhamdulillah. So, Qadir, sounds fine? It's not, okay. What is not fine?
That was very clear, like what the fundamental approach, different approach. Just kind of wondering, like, with the narration, I think we should discuss it. Where does that come with your fitra? I would say, like, inherently something feeling right to you, and if narration.
So, inshallah, the narration part, we will come right after this. If we discuss quick today, even we can start today. Let's see. Because, I mean, it's a card that's being played as well. Like, if it doesn't fit me, let's play the card of, this is weak, this is whatever, so that it's easy to discredit it. This is, but again, it looks like then there's another attitude when it comes to make the critique of narration chain. So am I using this card genuinely, or because I didn't like the content of it? So shall we will get there? Yes.
So one important point about ethical questioning, criticizing, or even seeing it as unimportant, I guess there's a common thinking. With one question needs to be answered. Is when we question within what context and within what framework we are questioning. So that even your point is not just trying to find a hole and destroy it. You are genuinely questioning, let's say not narration, but something that you assume, let's assume something is given to you, and let's assume you really trust that it's coming from prophets. Forget about the imperfection in narration. For anything that you say that, okay, I truly believe this is from prophet. How are you going to question that? Like, for instance, multiple marriages. I haven't heard anyone, I mean, I'm not a scholar or anything, that's deep research, but I haven't anywhere anyone saying that is a false narration. Actually, he married only once. I never heard that. So it seems that it is true that he really married multiple times. So I have no question about that. So now I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to question. I'm going to question this thing. So I can take it within different frameworks. I can say that, for instance. I think multiple marriages doesn't make sense. Why? Well, it's not part of our society anymore. I would say the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't know what you. This is for me. If I have multiple marriages, it would be against the societal norms, right? So other people wouldn't accept that. So this could be the framework that I question. And I'm really trying to find an answer. It's not that I want to destroy this guy. But then I can also ask the same question. What would be the reason for a prophet who is trying to convey the message to humans through his life as an example? What would it be that he's achieving with this? This is completely different framework that I'm questioning now. And the answer you will find will probably, I mean, I'm sure it will be, but let's say probably different. So questioning will be always there. Even with the ayahs, you will question them. I mean, this will sound a little crazy, I know, but I genuinely believe if when you read the ayahs, if you are not questioning, you're not reading. Like even a tape recorder can do what you are doing. So you have to question it. But again, within what framework? If this is an ayah coming from my creator, what would be the point of wisdom that such and such sentence is saying? What guidance I would receive from it? You have to make such questions, like I have such questions. Otherwise, ayah will not talk to you. The same way, when it comes to prophet, you have to question. Because, like, even with this, that was maybe part of the thing that I was trying to highlight at the very beginning. I failed by speak clearly. But having obligatory or voluntary parts, what do we mean with this? That nobody can force you to accept anything. As a human being, you have the ultimate freedom. Even if you are put in a jail, tortured, nobody can control what you think, what you accept. Nobody. There's no way. So what do you mean with the obligatory part with the Sunnah? I'm not obliged to do anything. What I mean with this. Right? So everything is questionable. You have to question everything. But within what framework? So then obligatory part means the parts, if you do not follow, and you have right to not to follow as a human being. But when you do that, you are harming yourself. Do you have right to harm yourself? Yes. Do you have the freedom to harm yourself? Yes, you do. But would you choose that? That's the part. Obligatory in the sense that if you don't do them, God will not slap you or send you a thunder. But you will be severing your relationship with your Lord. And you will end up in the darkness. So again, yes, you should question, but within what framework?
Any comments, questions? We're good. Okay. So in the second matter, he brought up the verse, and you stand on an exalted standard of character. So that is وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, and refers to the narration from Aisha radiallahu anha. She would say his character is the Quran. That is to say, Muhammad والسلام, is the exemplar of the fine moral qualities described by the Quran. He conforms to them more than anyone, and his nature was created in accordance with them. What do you think this relationship highlights here? Quran and the prophetic practice is now being made almost equal, if not equal. Yes, can we give microphone to Natalia?
I think this tells us that through emulating his character, we can have that much of a deeper connection with what Allah says and wants from us. Like first thing that he's like again, I walk into right? So like there is a way to live the words of Allah. So I think that like that's the other thing we can do. I think that's pretty.
Okay, beautiful. Sister Zareen is about to make a comment, but 2 minutes later or now? Go ahead.
I meant to ask a question, but this sentence, he conforms to them more than anyone, and his nature was created in accordance with them. I guess, I don't know, something kind of tickled me there with that sentence where how can you conform, how is it conforming if his nature was already created in accordance with the qualities in the Quran, I guess. So I guess I don't know. I was trying to think about it a bit more. Maybe one way of understanding it is that he was made to be this perfect vessel, but he also was a human being just like all of us and had that choice to exemplify.
No, that's a good catch actually, because in the verse it says وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. The word in there is khuluq, which is akhlaq, like the character. But author in there is also alluding to that this is the same word with khalq, creation. So there is it's the same word. One is character, the other one is creation. So author is combining these two words in there, saying that yes, you are created on this character in a sense, but being created on a character it's happening with your choice. So this is why Prophet conformed to Quran more than anyone. He chose, as Brother Birkan was highlighting, his freedom of choice was used in this direction. This is why he can become an exemplar for me. But then after using this freedom of choice, he was created in the best of the form. And why shall I be concerned about being in the best of the form? I guess it's what we are trying to do. Like in your life, you are trying to either have a happy family life, a good job career, or whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to achieve it nice. And you don't like headache, you don't like social pressure, you don't like many things. So I would like to stay away from things that disturb me. I would like to get better into things that give me comfort. So Prophet ﷺ achieved this by going through the message. I am interested in going through the message, but how do I do that? And this is a very practical question. How do I embody the message? So this is where Prophet is becoming a very practical way to achieve this. Otherwise, it is the nature of the language. You can take the words This is why from the very beginning we have been saying that I am in need of a human exemplar of the message. Because it is, as it is the case, natural language, a lot of room in there that you can bend, distort, pull it to the direction you would like to take it. The human is able to do that. But Prophet exemplifying in his life, and actually it's going to tie to the third matter as well. The bending is going to be a part of the third matter, where Prophet was mentioned as following the middle path, neither extremities, because really with the one extremity of intellect is stupidity, but the other extremity is you can distort falsehood as truth and present it as such. Unless the other person listening to you is sharp, they would really start thinking that what you're doing is correct. It sounds like it. So Prophet exemplifying the straight path for intellect, for courage, or as we will talk about in the next part, is also a reference point for us. And also in general, Quran being the best seerah book is what I'm hearing from here as well. Like, of course, we do need to study Prophet's life, understand what he went through, practically speaking. But reading Quran in the light of Prophet's life should be an interesting practice, because this is how Quran is practiced. So that one is a important highlight. We'll listen to Brother Birkan and then inshallah pray Math.
So we talked about that before. In the one-to-one connection, relationship between Quran and the creation, we said. Right? Every ayah we read in Quran, you can see it in application, in its the practice in the creation. Quran says his treasures wouldn't end, and we see that it's raining all the abundance of water coming down. Just one instance, like example, showing us with signs, right? The actions, not with letters, telling us the same message, giving us the same message with the actions this way. Quran says he's the most powerful one, and you see and you go and see, for instance, the Naikara, and you say that, okay, yes, I see the power there. Right? There will be always one-to-one connection with every ayah in Quran and the creation out there. So it's interesting with this, the text that we read. Now it says the Prophet was a walking Quran. So in the same sense, just like one-to-one relationship between Quranic ayahs and the creation out there, it seems there's also a connection between Quranic ayahs and a person, embodied in the life of a person. So we read Quran, we say how it applies to real life, we look at the creation. We read Quran, and I ask the question, how it applies to my human life. How am I going to live it? And then we have this, the Prophet. In his life, exemplifying every single ayah in Quran. Or other way around, to understand any ayah in Quran, you can look at one part of his life in the human form. It's a perfect match then between the creation out there, revelation, and the human life. Coming together perfectly and being a perfect explanation, interpretation of what I need to do. in this life. So I don't have any excuse to say that, yeah, there's revelation, but I don't know how to make sense of the creation. And then if your question about yourself, your life, right, your individual life or social life, look at the life of the prophet. Perfect example.
So in this regard, it gives us the framework that you were mentioning before. So in which framework am I going to question? Now this increased number of frameworks, it could be, actually it's going to be a mutual relationship between these three. So wherever I get stuck, so I will need to look for a consensus among the creation, among prophetic life, among Quran about the matter.
And one quick example, like next week when we start the narrations, we will see that the author taking a very strange stance and giving us examples from narrations that are considered to be weak. I mean, there is no much question even about whether they are weak or not. Most people would think they are weak, but he will still give us examples from them as if telling us if something from the prophet, if it is prophet, let's assume it is from the prophet, right? How should I read it? How should I understand it in the light of creation and in the light of Quran? And in the light of prophetic, not duty, let's say duty, prophetic duty,
Prophethood.
prophethood. How am I going to benefit from it if it was from prophet?
So the third matter was talking about the verse فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ. So be straight as you are commanded.
What is the translation again?
Therefore stand firm in the straight way as you are commanded, is how it's translated. But be straight as you are commanded would be, I guess. Be straight.
Oh, be straight. Okay, now it makes sense.
Okay. So what does this being straight mean? And now the author is mentioning that moderation is apparent in all his acts, words, and conduct. Prophets, words, acts, and conduct is all in moderation. We had a retreat about this. Was it the previous week retreat, the one before this one?
One before that.
Okay, two retreats before. So we were talking about humans, three fundamental faculties was intellect, was fear, and the third one was appetite, shahwa. So there would have been a middle ground of these, the lesser extreme, the more extreme, and Prophet had been implementing the middle ground for this one. So any comments? What do you think about these two extremities?
One clarification for me, the first two matters, so we have, there are three types of Sunnah. His words, his actions, and his conduct, which we are saying it's adab.
No, conduct is his hal, states.
Okay, so but acts is,
No,
what are we mentioning that?
And that was the next part. Obligatory, voluntary,
Okay, so then, okay, his actions, words, and conduct, and then there's three classifications, which is like obligatory, recommended. And then,
Actually, like in other part of the text, he says two types: obligatory, recommended, and within recommended there are parts that being
Yeah, and so, and this is differing from akhlaq, which comes in the next note. So are we saying that akhlaq does not have classifications on, recommended? What is the importance of them? Especially akhlaq being, the embodiment of the Quran, something, right? Being the manifestation of the Quran. Why is there no classification on that aspect? So,
I mean, as far as I understand, author mentioned akhlaq as khulq, like his creation, all at once. Like in his creation, if you would like to take him as an example, his creation is the perfect human example in here. So this perfect human being includes those three categories that was mentioned before, but now he is taking all three as his creation, as khulq. Not only character, morality, but also his creation overall, and then saying that this was Quran in the form. Does this clarify the part? So about the extremities, anything that you would like to mention? Prophet ﷺ's following the balance point. I would use the term balance point because in one of the previous points, he mentioned that Prophet would take the proper position in all the divine names. He used a sentence to such a meaning. What does this mean? Anything in this existence is manifestation of divine names. But where does one miss the balance between them? For example, I am being extremely merciful to a super cruel person, like the cruel person who keeps killing billions of people. And now, but I say, well, he's also a living being, like I'm showing mercy to this person and saying that, okay, I'm sparing him. He can stay. Like in this case, I am apparently manifesting mercy, but is this a proper mercy? Like still you're manifesting a divine quality. Whose mercy am I manifesting? But I am losing the balance here. Likewise, now he used three examples. He said intellect, like three fundamental human qualities: intellect, or fear, or attacking somebody. Like the middle point would be being courageous, and then the third one was animal appetite. So following the middle course in here is realizing divine names and taking a proper position in the balance point of all the divine names. This is why I think when Prophet ﷺ said, this surah and this verses from Surah Hud made me age. Like this command is a tough command to follow. Be straight as you are commanded is a tough thing to be on this thin line, and the hardness is coming from striking the balance. And this is what I find myself in, is there is a problem at hand. So you say, well, if I take it from this approach, it makes sense. And then Brother Bikan comes and says, well, but there's this other aspect. Well, yeah, it makes sense too. And then Atik says, well, how about this opinion? There's an agreed upon opinion about this topic, which comes from that perspective. It also makes sense. So how am I going to establish the balance between them? It's a very real, practical problem in our lives. So Prophet has demonstrated the balance point of this. So this is why that's relevant.
straightness also implies not being bended, not being almost like affected from, let's say, the currents. Like in our example, for instance, for ourselves, like you have your fitra, and right, wrong, everything is being taught to you through revelation, through creation, through your fitra, through the example of the prophet. And you see the path that takes you to your creator. Are you going to take this path, which is straight and usually the shortest path? Or are you going to be bended, inclined towards other attraction points, your society, your family, what your colleagues expect from you, your followers, if you're an influencer like that. So it also implies that you shouldn't be affected by any of experiences, and just be straight.
Yes, any comments? This concludes the section. Yes, there's a comment there.
Just wondering about like not being affected by like certain situations, like family, work, all of these things. Doesn't mean to, I guess I just wanted to clarify, it doesn't mean to just sort of cut yourself off. Rather, you still have to, because that sometimes I get mixed up myself, like you still have to, it's still part of like your creation in your life that you have to like read the divine meanings in those moments. And so sometimes I feel like I take it as being more just like rigid to everything rather than maybe there's a distinction between being like rigid and straight. I don't know. I was also thinking about when I was reading this about hadith that I think relates more to calamities, but it goes along the lines of like the example of a believer is like a plant that bends like when the wind like blows harshly, but then it remains straight after the wind has passed. So I think that was maybe more of a connection to having sabr in difficult situations, but might not be completely relevant. Whereas the wicked person is like a pine tree who remains rigid and then gets cut down. I think just like keeps hard and straight until it's cut down. So I guess that kind of came to mind. Maybe the point isn't to be like when we're talking about moderation and staying on this path, it isn't to do it with like the stubborn mindset, I guess, but being open to receiving.
And I think the term in here, فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ and اهْتَنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, the word is the same, the path is the same that's being mentioned, is an important part because in Surah Fatiha, when we say اهْتَنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, guide us to the right path. So the expectation in there is a right path. But I'm also aware that by myself, I'm not able to find that path. So, because there was this, the last verse, as we were concluding the text, and they shall say, praise be to God, who has guided us to this felicity. Never could we have found guidance had it not been for the guidance of God. Indeed, it was the truth that the prophets of our sustainer brought to us. So this is a very important point because sometimes we feel like and you can check it for yourself as well. After finding guidance, I start feeling like I could have found this by myself. Even my attitude changes. Let's say for the first time, I hear something in a discussion. Then I say, oh, like my world is changing. Then I keep attending the discussion. After 2 years, like I say, yeah, I mean, that's it, of course. So it becomes so normal. But what is changing in this case? It's becoming normal, that's fine. But I start having self-confidence, or is it increasing my reliance on my creator? To the point that it increases my self-confidence, I'm not saying like the verse is mentioning, like, and they shall say, praise be to God, not to me, not to my own senses and whatnot, who has guided us to this felicity. Never could we have found guidance had it not been for the guidance of God. Indeed, it was the truth that the prophets of our sustainer brought to us. So in this regard, I do expect my creator to guide me to the right path. Yes, I'm being under the influence of other things as events happening in life, or different ideologies are passing by me. So I guess what you refer to is more about calamities, because am I bending in the sense that like I'm very rigid? If everything goes well, I am thankful to my creator. If things start going wrong, then I'm not going to be thankful to my creator. Is it like this? Or do I have this flexibility that a calamity is going to bend me, meaning my head is going to go to ruku, me realizing my needs before my creator. But after it, I'm going to still raise my hand to my creator when things go back. But I guess the thing that Brother Birkan was referring to is more so in the sense that how much do I get affected by the currents, the social norms, and do I stay firm? Because in the case of Prophet ﷺ, like so many different things were happening around him, a very strong culture, yet he stayed steadfast. So that would have been very hard, and still hard today for us here. Yes, there is also a comment there. Or no?
So, not from there. No, there isn't. You should. So one example came to my mind, for instance, in our society, people would say your daughter, your children should know about how to become successful, right? Become leaders. And yeah, that's true, right? That's right. So I will teach them how the people who have the power in their hands are so important. You have to become one of them. I will teach them how things like the different actors, the clashes in the society, they have to be on top of everybody else and so on. Please being affected by the current. What am I doing right now? It's not bending in your sense, but it is teaching them something that would harm them, not being on the straight path. Instead, I would say, ignore all these false ideologies, and I will just teach them, in the ideologies, I will just teach them how to become the perfect portion. When you need something, just ask it from Creator, no one else. Don't bow anyone in front of anyone else. That I will teach, but only your Creator. So the social norms will not affect me when I make such a decision, let's say. Inshallah.
So any concluding remarks? And this is concluding the part about Sunnah. So we will start discussing narrations. Any general question that you feel like we skipped about Sunnah or prophethood that you still have?
We have like 10 minutes.
15 minutes, yeah.
But it means to be moderate. Does that mean be moderate? Does that mean we're not too extreme? We're not too liberal, we're like in the middle of that. It means we like roll the cups of our pants, but we ignore other things, we just have like a good balance of following the Sunnah of Islam.
Yes, moderate Muslims. Any comments about moderate Muslims?
What was the term they use for Islam in Turkey? Like it's something Islam.
Moderate?
Yeah, moderate, right? That's right.
Yeah, like the Turkish Islam is a good Islam.
So I'm just trying to like give a bad example of not being moderate. So the people would say, not only in Turkey, but let's say the Western countries would say, a country like a Turkey, it's a moderate Islamic nation. And what they mean is the people don't care about Islam. They call themselves as Muslim, but they don't care about Islam. So they're moderate in the sense that, yeah, this life is also important. The worldly life is also important. Of course, there's Aira, but let's try to benefit most from this life. Obviously, that's not the right definition of the moderate. That's what I mean.
So Turkish Islam is not good? Okay. It's a thing, like Turkish Islam is a thing. So I think moderate in this case is, we need to look at Prophet's life. I mean, the examples he gave is being fearful, courageous, or like being extremely savage, sort of, not having any. But I mean, the part that maybe I find my life relatable nowadays more is when it comes to when he says, like, being somewhere between stupidity and using or abusing your intellect to make wrong into right. So how do I properly think? Now that we are in here, most of us are in academia, we are dealing with ideas. This becomes very interesting case for me, because with intellect now in academia, truth is being used to say that there's no God. Like, this is an interesting case of intellect being abused in a strange way. So on the face of this, how do we respond as believers? Sometimes we act very stupid, saying, Quran says so, so I accept. Even when we start questioning, and today actually we were having a discussion at Drexel, we were just talking about La ilaha illallah because there was a new convert brother. Interestingly, the convert brother said that, well, like, come to the conclusion quickly, like, God is all powerful because tell me a 2-sentence conclusion.
From Quran?
From somewhere. He said, I watched a YouTube video and the guy gave this and that conclusion, like this argument, 2-sentence argument, and that's it. But the argument was coming from top down, meaning God must be all-powerful, and two all-powerful cannot exist, therefore God is one and only. But why should God be all-powerful? Like, you're starting to imagine a God up there. Like, this line of reasoning, and this brother heard it on a YouTube video or whatever, I feel like is to the stupidity level of intellect. But we are using this for Islam or understanding our Creator and whatnot. And this could be very well used to prove otherwise, saying that this is what you guys are doing, like you're imagining some sort of a God and trying to make a self-consistent story around your assumptions about God. So on the other hand, they go to the other extreme, saying that, well, things happen by themselves, by randomness, this and that, and we explain the existence. So what's the prophetic point in here? So we will need to be using intellect in the case like Iman studies. Let's bring it to our discussion, where I will be exploring the universe. I will come to the conclusion that there is no God, but God must be my conclusion. This cannot be God, that cannot be God. La ilaha, but and then I would say illallah. So the brother said, if we were to have this conversation with an atheist, it would require a bit of a patience from his end.
From the atheists and
From atheists' end. I said, of course, because we have been trained with atheists' worldview for past 20 years. And we just started conversation for half an hour. Let him wait and listen, or let's try to find a common ground to talk, or else, if not interested, fine for him. But of course, we are blaming the atheist in here. Let's blame the atheist within us. The one in me doesn't want to listen in this case. So this is why, as an example, where do we stand in prophetic middle ground when it comes to using our intellect? So this is such an example. I think again, we might be failing quite a bit. And prophetic example in this case, Quran, if you would like to take it as Quran, or how Prophet approached people when giving examples to their level of understanding. And now we are at university campuses. How do we give examples to people in today's level of knowledge? Like if I were to be speaking to a Bedouin, to tell the Bedouin about its maker, I will use what the Bedouin knew as an example. But now we are on university campuses. People in here are experts doing biomedicine research in like cutting edge research labs. So how do I speak to such a person? Or how do myself, if I'm doing this research myself, how do I use my intellect on the right way to find the truth with it? So this is the lesson that we should be taking from here. I think this would make us the moderate Muslim. It's not simply like media, as Brother Birkan was highlighting, like media's type of moderate Muslim, meaning do your job well, don't steal money, keep a low profile, you're a good citizen. Like this is not what is moderate Muslim.
the opposite also. Again, in the same example, like moderate Muslim means one who is not wearing Muslim-like clothes. If you wear Muslim-like clothes, you are an extreme Muslim. If you are just wearing, what I'm wearing, you are a moderate Muslim. So, in that sense, just getting rid of your Muslim qualities is very good as moderate Muslim. But we're going back to your question, what it really is. So there's the connection between, the huluk, ahlak, and the khalaq, like the creation. I think it can be the key there to understand what the moderation means. When we have a quality or any the faculty like intellect or desire, anger, anything like that, the feelings. When I realize and say that it is not mine, it is created. So my intellect is given to me, created in me or for me, right? But it is created, and also it's not myself. I guess that's the starting. When you realize that, then you ask the question, then how am I going to use it? what the owner of it wants me to do with it. So if I trust you something, right, and I tell you that use it, you wouldn't use it as you wish. You would use it in a way that would please me as the owner. So the same way when you say, okay, I have these desires, but they are created. I'm not the owner, I'm not the creator there. How am I supposed to be using them? In what way, using in what way would please the owner of it? I think asking this question and following the way that would its owners want, that's the moderate path. And that's the reason we take the prophet as the role model. Because we say, okay, the prophet is the one who knows best when it comes to what would please the owner of this creation. And I use it that way. Creator gave me my intellect. My intellect was created. Let me put it this way. How am I going to use it? If I waste it, for instance, if I don't use it, stupidity, right? Obviously, the owner wouldn't be happy. Right? I gave you these valuable things. Why didn't you use it? Sometimes you gift someone something really special, and they say, "Oh, this is so beautiful! I love it. So I will find it somewhere. I will never use it, right? Because it's so valuable. I will never use it." So that you would use it and benefit from it, right? It's kind of like an insult to your gift. The same way, if I waste my intellect, it will be an insult. If I own my intellect and say that I can do whatever I want with it, I can speak people, I can, lead them to the false path. I can do whatever I want. Again, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do with it. I guess so that the key is, again, remembering that and I took out the question, what would the owner want me to do with it?
Any concluding remarks? Oh, yes, there's one. Yes. Do you have a microphone somewhere there or no? It's not? Okay. Wait, it's.
So in the third one, I've tried reading it multiple times. So when he talks about the power of anger, he says his power of anger was always employed with sacred courage, which is the middle way. I don't understand what that means. Like,
Can you read it again, sorry?
so it says his power of anger was always employed with sacred courage.
Sacred?
Courage,
Okay.
which is the middle way and means of moderation of that power. And again, in the preceding paragraph, it says similarly, far from rage and cowardice. So it's somewhere in the middle from being just like angry, raging, and then being a coward.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time understanding what's sacred courage. Like, how are we supposed to deal with anger? Like, what's the middle way?
Okay.
So, I'm trying to think about an example for that.
And what is the original of sacred?
شجرة قدسي. So, I mean, an example from Imam Ali comes to my mind. So I will quote this one. So in the battlefield, he is fighting with a disbeliever, and then like the disbeliever fails, and now it is time to finish the guy.
Not
And then the guy spits at Imam Ali's face. And then Imam Ali turns away. And the guy says, why didn't you kill me? He says, because I was going to kill you for the sake of my creator. It was a battle. Now that you spit in my face, I became angry with you, and my ego creeped in. So I was now going to kill you for my own anger. So this is why I didn't. And then the guy says, my intention was to make you angry so that you finish it quickly. But since your religion is so pure, then he accepts the message. So this might give us an example of the distinction between anger and courage. Like shaja'at qudsiyya, like courage, like pure courage. Qudsi also means pure or clean. So he exemplifies this. He's not afraid of the guy. He's in the battlefield, but he's not angry for his own sake. So this courage is for a purpose that relates to the creator. It's not like his courage is for his own sake either. Like the courage is a security in his creator, not his own power or his own ego, his own, like I am coming from Quraysh sort of an ego, like whatever sort of ego. So I think this might exemplify that. Okay.
we can maybe take the Qudsi as also not being dirty, tainted, but anything else other than your fear of God or your relationship, let's say, a relationship with God. It's pure in the sense that it's not affected by your ego or the behavior of other people. So when it comes to the anger, you are not a coward because you know that everyone else, just like you yourself, is a creation, and nobody has any power, just like yourself, over you. So you don't have any reason to be coward. But it's not because you think you are so strong. It's because you think that everybody else, like you, is so powerless in relationship with your creator. So you are not coward. You are not. What is the opposite of it? Sorry? No. Just the extreme.
He said rage is used here.
Rage. Or tyrant, let's say. You're not a tyrant either. Why? Not because you feel so humble or you love people, but because you know that whatever you have is not from you. You cannot use it for your own benefit. What is the middle ground then? Accepting that what you have is from your creator, what others also have from the same creator. No reason to be covered, no place to be a tyrant. In the middle.
So I guess since we are not in battlefield, how do we apply this to ourselves? When you're attempting for a new job, new endeavor, I guess we can find ourselves in such a position. So I might be afraid of entering the job, or I might be feeling this false self-confidence, I'll take care of it. And whatever rules, I'm not going to, I'll find all the shortcuts and whatnot. Or I can say, in the name of my creator, I entered this. As long as he provides me, in him I place my trust. All I need to do is asking from him, so I enter. So this is being like a bravery, but it's connected to my creator, not to myself. So let's conclude here, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Inshallah, I'm going to conclude with this salawat at the end. اللهم صل على جامع مكارم الأخلاق ومظهر السر وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم الذي قال من تمسك بالسنة عند فساد أمتي فله أجر 100 شهيد الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.